we tend to be really good at looking at the negative pieces and get into negative thinking cycles. It's really easy to do that. And so, which is why it takes intentionality, like being really purposeful about not thinking that way. Yeah. But when we're purposeful about thinking more positively than negatively, we start to become better at thinking more positively.
Yeah. Your life, your journey starts now. Welcome back to the Journey Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler.
I'm Dillon.
One of the things that has been really impactful recently, and the way that I think is just in our staff meetings that we have on Monday mornings, somebody from the staff will bring a gratitude journal, like a different person has it each week, and they'll just, towards the end of the staff meeting, say, like, what's the gratitude journal for this week? And then whoever it was will have just written any given point throughout the week, just like found something to be grateful for. Like last week, it was a guy whose wife just had a baby. The thing that has impacted me the most about that is just seeing the way that people, even in the midst of, it might not have been a great week. That's the thing about having the gratitude journal, is you might have a terrible week and then you still have to find something to be grateful for. And I think that's actually what makes gratitude even more real, which leads to better just outcomes in general, is when you, on the surface, maybe don't have things to be thankful for, and yet you're still being intentional and looking for, what can I be grateful for? Specifically, who can I be grateful to? And obviously for us, we say that the most important answer to that is God. But it's good to be grateful to other people. It's good to be grateful to God for other people. And I just think if we couch our gratitude in only being grateful for things that are easy to be grateful for, like being healthy or nice weather or a bonus on your paycheck, then as soon as those things go away, we're not grateful anymore, and our mind goes back to that same bad place it was before we were being intentionally grateful. And so like I would say that your gratitude is only as good as the object of your gratitude, in the same way that it's like when I get a gift from somebody, I'm not grateful to the gift itself, I'm grateful to the one who gave it. And so I think in the same way, when it comes to being grateful in life, we would say, if the ultimate object or recipient of your gratitude is God, who is totally good and totally unchanging and delights in giving good gifts to his children, right? In James, it says, every good and perfect gift comes from above. And there's more in that verse, but
Father of heavenly lights.
Yes, thank you. I'm forgetting the rest of it, but yes. So yeah, so it's like I just think that there's something to that. Like, okay, if the recipient of my gratitude is somebody who I should always be grateful towards and grateful for, then it allows me to maintain a heart of gratitude even when things are difficult, which leads to me being able to stand firm in the midst of hardship, because my mind is focused on the things that I'm grateful for and not my circumstances, which on the surface might not always be things that I'm grateful for.
Especially in the moment too, because I go through something very difficult, and in the moment I'm like, why am I going through this?
Right.
Which is why earlier when I said the thing I'm like not grateful for, but also grateful for in the same breath, is like, this is hard. Like, I don't like being out of my comfort zone where like I feel like people don't see the world the way that I see it.
Yep.
And that's really difficult, but I'm also grateful for that because it's challenging me to grow.
Right.
And I'm grateful for the growth.
Yeah, exactly. And growth almost never comes from things being perfectly easy.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think that's a pretty universal lesson, is that you don't grow in your comfort zone.
Right. Yep.
And so it seems like so counterintuitive to like think that way. Like, I'm grateful for the hard thing because the hard thing is what's most valuable, because it brings about something greater.
Right.
And that's really hard to be grateful for in the moment.
Yeah.
But then like hindsight's like, oh yeah, I'm really grateful for that happened in my life, because now I have such a greater perspective of life.
That's a good point. Well, and you were telling me just a little bit ago, some of the research behind that, like how practicing gratitude actually just naturally leads to a better, or I don't know, better life, being happier, greater mental health outcomes. I don't know how you want to describe that, but.
Well, I guess I could go like the super sciencey route and say like yeah, there's literally proof within the brain, like neuroscientifically speaking.
Yeah.
There's physical changes in the brain, like when you practice gratitude, your brain changes the way that it functions, like the different neural pathways. And I don't know all the other words because I'm not like a genius at this stuff, but like I've read research and I've seen that it changes the brain. But like one thing I saw was that practicing gratitude, you start to see less blood flow in the amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain. It's where anxiety and fear happen. And the amygdala, that's like the core of your brain, almost like if you look at my hand, my thumb is here, the middle of my palm. I fold over my fingers. That's like the prefrontal cortex.
Okay, that's the brain.
Whereas my thumb is the amygdala. It's kind of in the middle of the brain. Okay, so amygdala is where like fear and anxiety live. So it's like our fight or flight mode. That's where that comes from.
Okay.
When we are focusing on the negative things, when we're putting a lot of energy into griping about this thing at school happened, I hate this, this makes me so angry, you're actually causing more blood flow to happen in the amygdala, which then strengthens the anger, strengthens the anxiety, strengthens the fear.
Sure.
But if you actually change the angle of, you know what, the thing at school that made me really angry, it's actually teaching me a valuable lesson, and I'm starting to be thankful for that, you start to see the blood flow lessen in the amygdala and go towards the prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain, my fingers part, for those of you watching the video. And that's prefrontal cortex is where logic is happening. So practicing gratitude actually helps you pay more attention to the logic rather than the emotion, if that makes sense.
Sure. You think more clearly about it.
You think more clearly when there's more blood flow in the prefrontal cortex. So you're not so, and this kind of goes back to a few episodes ago we were talking about balancing emotions and logic.
Yeah, right.
And this is part of it. Gratitude helps regulate that.
Right.
It's not the only thing that regulates it, but it's very, very powerful at doing so.
Right.
It can help. Sometimes we get into, we as humans tend to have like, we tend to be really good at looking at the negative pieces and get into negative thinking cycles. It's really easy to do that. And so, which is why it takes intentionality, like being really purposeful about not thinking that way. But when we're purposeful about thinking more positively than negatively, we start to become better at thinking more positively.
Yeah.
If
like
that
a muscle.
does it make sense?
Like
exactly.
Exercising a muscle.
It's exactly. You're building a habit. The more you practice the habit, the better you get at doing it. And so in the future, you don't have to think so hard about it. It becomes easier. My point is, the more you practice gratitude, the easier doing gratitude helps.
Yeah.
Or the easier it gets.
That's so funny.
And the more that it helps.
The fact that you say that, it just makes me think of, it's funny, not funny is the wrong word. It's cool to me when scientific explanations catch up with the truth of the Bible.
Yeah.
You've said this to me before, but
you've said that to me. Yeah. I can't remember who said it first, but
yeah. And I just I find myself thinking about it because what you just said draws me right to, in Philippians 4, I'm just going to read
6 through
7. I was going to do like 4 through 9, but it's just a few verses, so bear with me.
Yeah, okay.
Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. And this is just one of Paul's letters, and he's saying to the Philippian church, let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. And then this is what connects exactly with what you just said. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, which is asking for things, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And so the like greater reality there, I think that you're touching on, Dillon, is when I practice thankfulness, just another way to say gratitude, specifically towards the Lord and just in general, and we would say in taking those things before God in prayer, as you do that, the peace of God, which surpasses all knowledge, is just another way of saying that doesn't make sense. The peace where, you can be on an airplane that's having terrible turbulence and you don't feel super scared about it, but even like 10 times more than that. Like the peace of God that, man, it feels like everything in my life is just going crazy, but I really don't feel that anxious about it, or I have hope and I have trust in God, and so I have this sense of peace, and I'm thankful for God even when my circumstances don't seem to to back up the peace
Right.
that I feel. That's a peace that makes no sense, but it's because it comes from God and it's fostered by that sense of thanksgiving. And then actually just continuing on the last two verses to further your point, you said the more you think about it, the easier that it is to do. And you've talked to me about this before with cognitive behavior therapy and just this idea that, our feelings tend to follow our thoughts and our thoughts tend to follow our beliefs. And so like if we focus on certain things, our feelings will inevitably start to follow what we focus on. And so after that, I just read in Philippians 4, there's 2 more verses that say, finally, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. And so he's saying exactly what you just said. If you focus on things that are greater than just the brokenness of our circumstances, inevitably peace is going to follow those things, a peace that comes from a focus upon the ways that we have been blessed, right? The reasons that we do have to be grateful, as opposed to just, woe is me because my circumstances are bad. And the reality is, I think you said this earlier, we just tend to accentuate the negative, or we tend to overemphasize the negative, when the truth of the matter is, even in the worst points of my life, there have been things that I could be grateful for. Like even in the time in which I was coming to first know Jesus, it felt like my family was falling apart at the seams. But I look back on that time and it's like, although I'm not grateful that my family was falling apart at the seams necessarily, I am grateful that at the same time that was happening, God put people in my life that would invite me to church and that would talk to me about him. Or, I am grateful that there were other adults in my life that cared enough about me to make sure I stayed out of trouble and things like that. So just, even though the circumstances wouldn't have looked great on the outside, even in the moment, I had a lot of reasons to be grateful. Yeah.
So if you are interested in learning more about this subject and even diving deeper into the subject of relationships, emotions, and all the stuff we talked about today, you can go ahead and go to journeycoaching.org, pick up a Journey Coaching booklet, and go and start your journey today.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time and make sure you like and subscribe. Visit us at journeycoaching.org and check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Start your own journey at journeycoaching.org.
Your life, your journey starts now.